Hello and welcome to another episode of Educational Insights at Five Plan Partners. I'm excited to talk to you today about a topic that is probably not the most popular, but can really provide some long-term value for you and your family once you sort of understand the details and make a commitment to executing on this strategy. So what we're going to talk about today is the long-term value of an HSA account. And there's a few acronyms when you're talking about different accounts that you can have payroll deducted, but the HSA stands for Health Savings Account. Now, the number one requirement for the Health Savings Account is that you have to be in a high deductible health plan. That's probably the biggest downside to an HSA. But if you're a relatively healthy person and you don't chronically see the doctor, or someone in your family is not always going to the doctor, an HSA might be a great opportunity for you to defer some of your current income now to help pay for medical expenses a long way down the road. And don't get me wrong, a lot of folks use an HSA to pay for medical expenses in the year that they deferred the money. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is a technique where you pursue a little bit of delayed gratification, and it can pay some really outsized dividends. So what is an HSA? An HSA is a tax-deferred account that is intended for medical expenses. And sometimes employers may offer a match, and sometimes employers may voluntarily contribute a certain amount, but you have the capacity to defer up to somewhere around $3,600 per year for yourself, or basically double that if you're on a family plan. And so that's an opportunity to save some dollars before payroll taxes, before federal income taxes, before state income taxes, and if you're subject to it, local income taxes. So this really wonderful pre-tax advantage to setting aside some dollars for medical expenses. Regardless of whether you choose to use your HSA funds for medical expenses in the year that you save the dollars, or whether you use them when you're 65 and 70 years old, if you use those funds in the HSA account for medical expenses, you never have to pay any tax on the dollars that you've saved. And that's a really tremendous benefit for all of us. Now let's talk about my favorite strategy with an HSA account. And that's how it can be incredibly beneficial for you if you can put a 10, 20, 30-year time horizon on this account. It's a really difficult thing for people to do. It's a topic known as delayed gratification. And a lot of us can really struggle to delay our gratification a long way down the road. What's an example of delayed gratification? Putting money into your 401k every single paycheck is a great example of delayed gratification, because you're not going to use those dollars until you get into your retirement years to pay for your lifestyle once you've retired. Delayed gratification is obviously very hard, but it can be incredibly rewarding because it benefits from the value of compounding interest over extended periods of time. The long-term strategy for HSA accounts is to take the dollars and not spend them on your medical expenses this year, but instead build up the account and invest it in a portfolio intended for growth over a really long time horizon. Now, that means different things to different people. So you'll want to work with an advisor to decide, what your allocation to stocks is, what your allocations to bonds are, just depending on your time horizon. It might be 10 or 15 years, depending on your age. It could be 30 or 40 years if you're a little bit younger. Either way, it's important to invest those dollars for long term as opposed to just holding it in cash. But we don't really have the opportunity to realize the benefits that I'm describing. Now let's review what HSA accounts could be used to reimburse once we're 65, 70, 75 years old in retirement. It can be used for your Medicare premiums, and all of us are going to be subject to Medicare premiums. So that's a really easy way to think about the benefits of an HSA. So it's going to take care of my basic Part B premium. It's going to take care of any supplemental plans that I engage with. And if I'm subject to IRMAA surcharges, I should be able to take care of those as well, because that's part of the Medicare premium package. If you have an expensive out-of-pocket expense that your Medicare package is not covering, You can pull from the HSA. If you've got, say, a $10,000 expense because you had a significant procedure, Medicare is not covering that procedure. You can go to the HSA after 20, 30, 40 years, and you've allowed that account to build up the same way your 401k has, but you can pull that pre-tax money, pay for medical expense, and never pay the federal government or the state government any income tax. One of the biggest financial risks that we discuss with folks as they're in their retirement age is being subject to a long, drawn-out, long-term care event. An example being if you have Alzheimer's and you need someone to take care of you around the clock. That can get really expensive, but if you've saved diligently, invested for the long haul, and built up a sizable HSA account, that can serve as a long-term care buffer. And unlike long-term care insurance, it doesn't matter what your health is when you apply for the insurance. When you apply for that insurance, you could be declined because of a health issue. But with an HSA account, there are no health requirements to open, establish, fund, and invest. So this can be a really great way for you to mitigate that risk of a long-term care costs. And then finally, I think another great benefit of the HSA account is that you can use it for things that are not medically related. That comes with a penalty of sorts, but it's really not a penalty if you think of it the same way as you think of any pre-tax 401k accounts that you have. If you pull money out of an HSA account and you use it to take your family on a vacation or buy your next car, then you don't receive all the tax benefits. You're going to have to pay ordinary income tax on the amount that you pull out. So if you pull out $20,000 and you take your family on a European vacation, you're going to owe some ordinary income tax on your tax return on that withdrawal. So let's review what we've discussed today. A health savings account, which is only available through a high deductible health plan, can be a really great way to save for medical expenses, both this year, but more importantly, if you want to begin supplementing some of your medical expenses that you'll experience in retirement, you can fund and invest an HSA account and invest for a long-term time horizon and pull those funds out as needed without incurring any federal or state income tax ever if you apply it for medical expenses. And this can cover your Medicare premiums. This can cover big expense item out-of-pocket medical expenses that you might experience in retirement. And it can cover long-term care costs, which can be really beneficial if you find yourself in a situation with an expensive long-term care need. And then finally, you can pull it out for non-medical expense items. You're just going to have to pay federal and state income tax. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us at Five Plan Partners. We'd love to discuss this topic and a wide array of financial planning topics with you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this very interesting and very valuable benefit with you. And we look forward to seeing you next time.